tell me the current wave of, I'm saying this in a very sultry voice.
I know this is like your God voice.
Yeah, it's my late night radio voice. Do you consider the current wave of AI to be truly intelligent?
That is a very good question. So a mutual friend of ours, Rika Nakazawa, promotes this idea of organic intelligence. And the idea is that, we are the ones who created the algorithms, and we created all of the data that is being ingested by these models. And so all of it is, in fact, organic. But, we are not as smart as we think we are. From a neuroscience perspective, we don't really even understand how the brain works, and yet we're expending a lot of energy trying to replicate how our minds work and how this sort of perfect machine works. So the short answer would be no, but are we on the right path? I think a lot of work has to be done. A lot more guardrails need to be put in place, and a lot more closed, controlled experimentation needs to happen really before we let the beast loose into everything.
Sure, but Fedra, are we on the right path? Surely AI is unlocking so much knowledge and intelligence around the world. It's very exciting, isn't it?
It is exciting, and I am actually optimistic, which is why our company is called the AI ArtLab. But I'd like to posit a thought that if we all remember high school, science and Galileo, and how in the 16th century Galileo had used telescopes to prove that the Earth was not the center of our solar system, the Inquisition indicted him, and he was charged with heresy. It took 150 years for the scientific community to recognize what we now all take for granted. I think we're in a second Galileo moment, and that artificial intelligence is going to prove that humans are not at the apex of, the intelligence system. We're not, necessarily smarter than the birds who can fly without crashing. We're not smarter than the trees and the beautiful parks that we have here in Luxembourg, where the trees communicate with each other and live in a much more harmonious manner. So I think AI is exciting because it's going to be a mirror that is going to reflect just how unintelligent we are. And on the other hand, to the point of our mutual friend Rika Nakazawa, who received Prime Minister Luc Friedan when he was at the World Expo, she talks about organic intelligence. So maybe the AI is going to help us learn from all the other smarter ecosystems.
Thank you. We've got right behind us now this big brand that's been looking, our audience have been reading all day about connectivity and connecting tomorrow. Are there any risks about that, Amy?
Of course, there are risks with any technology, and I think the way that I look at, again, I talked a little bit about the parallel paths to innovation. We know we can help companies again with that sort of incremental improvement. What we do a lot of work on is what are the problems that all of this new technology are going to cause, right? And start to get in front of those problems. Historically, we haven't been great at cause and effect. The Industrial Revolution, the technology revolution, all of those have taken a turn that wasn't expected. So we need to point some of the technology and use it as tools to really understand the things that we are in fact missing.
But isn't the argument here that the benefits of all of us connecting more outweigh the negatives, Fedra?
Let's remember, although My Connectivity has a great company title, that despite the technology, humans are social animals, and we need connection. And I think the evidence is very clear, especially for people who are like me, born sometime after 1970, where we remember what it was like to sit around the table and talk with our parents and our children. So I think the evidence on how phones and social media has damaged the social fabric are very, very clear. Each time I get into the subway, I often wonder, Do we remember what we were holding before we were holding the cell phones?
Do you remember what you were holding?
Yes, often, a book, because I went to school in New York, and when I rode the subway, it was still a little bit dangerous. I didn't, my parents were physicians in New Jersey. They didn't really ride public transportation, but, you could imagine a friend might, a couple might be holding each other's hand. More importantly, a parent might be holding their child's hand. So, I'm happy to be here because I think there needs to be more of us to raise our hand and call out that beyond our privileged bubble, all it takes is to ride any subway, to walk in any city, to go in any restaurant and see how we're losing the social connection that we need to be healthy and human.
Wow. Amy, back to you. When you're speaking with your big organizations, your big companies, wherever they are in the United States, what are the key factors when you are arguing for AI adoption? Why are you telling companies they need it?
They're all asking for it. They're all raising their hands. What I ask them is, what is the outcome? What are you trying to accomplish? And we look again at what are the near-term things, what are the optimizations? We heard a lot about closed-loop optimizations. So what are the controlled environments where we can use AI, where the data is clean, and it's a fairly linear path, and it can be automated? The bigger challenge is not just setting up AI for the exponential growth, but really, what are you going to do with this workforce? How are you going to retrain them? How are you going to have them more checked in? How are you not going to have a negative impact on your customer base? Like, it's really, sadly, just a barrage of questions first to really get at the core of where they want to be in 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Sure. I mean, Fedra, do you have a view on this? Because normally, if you were speaking to any banks who are here, they understand that AI can make themselves operationally more efficient. But is that the right KPI to judge this whole process?
I think we need to challenge this myth of enhanced productivity. For anyone who's been on an airplane or goes into a store or does interactions with Airbnb or IKEA, we all know that although our portfolios are doing better when the companies are squeezing costs and cutting out all the people who actually provide customer service, we know that customer service is in decline. And we know that corporations use digital moats to protect them against, the outrage of the customer. When I flew to the Venice Film Festival last year, I knew I would be meeting with lots of fancy people, so I packed all my fancy clothes in my suitcase, and Air France lost my luggage for 3 days and then dropped it in, water. So when I got it back, no apology, no compensation. I did try to email both the CEO of Air France and KLM, and I couldn't get through. Normally, I'm very good at contacting, leaders and getting them to respond. So let's be honest about the decline in service that we are all experiencing when we're not wearing our, business caps.
Amy, is there really a decline in service, and is that caused by this drive to AI?
I mean, I think that's been happening for a long time. Someone actually went to great lengths to be able to use a natural language processing application for these sort of robotic, automated customer service call centers to recognize when people were getting upset, when they started to shout, and trained on the most common swear words and epithets that they would then get to. So it's like companies actually knew. So instead of saying, wow, this isn't really working for our customers, so let's identify when they're getting really mad, and then we'll send them to a person. It's an interesting logic, right?
Brilliant. Fedra, if I was to add up the total number of users between Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, it totals approximately 3.3 billion daily users. With the introduction of their AI tool, which is now present in all of our chats in the Messenger window, it means that they have the potential to become the dominant AI tool within about a year. How do you feel about that?
I think that as we try to anticipate, the risks of the future, it is irresponsible to pretend that we don't have 15 years of the past to be able to identify the behavior of the corporations that are now, controlling everything. I think it was last year when Mark Zuckerberg was called before Congress and asked to turn around and apologize to the parents of the teenagers who had been bullied and ended up committing suicide. So I don't know why we all have our heads in the sand. I don't have children, but we all have teenagers and friends in our lives who are experiencing firsthand. The reason that art is powerful, because if we're not paying attention to the data, all you need to do is go on Netflix and watch the Netflix series Adolescence, which makes it very graphic for anyone who pretends not to know what children are experiencing. There was a whistleblower from Facebook who has revealed that it was a very deliberate strategy. I recently read that when a teenager, typically a woman, a girl, takes a selfie and deletes a selfie, those same companies then offers her either a cosmetic product or a cosmetic surgery. So, for the adults in the room, one day we're going to have to account for all that is happening. We only need to look back to the last 15 years to know the harm so that we can responsibly protect our families, our children, other people's children.
I mean, but Amy, if I was to argue on the Facebook side of this, I mean, we live in a desperate world. I mean, my friends are scattered everywhere. I need a tool like Facebook to communicate with them. It's not an option turning it off. Isn't the benefit of Facebook worth the cost?
I don't think so, because I think also, let's be honest, generationally, we're a little bit different than the kids that are using it today, and they're growing up on this diet of digital connection. Kids who are gamers have, call their friends who they have no idea who they actually are, and they develop these relationships. There is a lot of good, right? There is some benefit to being able to, consistently reach out to people that you wouldn't necessarily contact. But again, I'll go back to the statement that this technology should be in service of humanity, and human wellness is severely in decline, and a lot of it is around us becoming these sort of consumer machines, that we are just being manipulated by the harvesting of our data, preying on our insecurities, and then causing us to want things that we don't really need.
Fedra, I've just received a secret question from the audience asking me to ask you about women in data. And the question, it's along the lines of, if I can rephrase this, women in poor countries such as India have benefited a lot from connectivity. Shouldn't we be encouraging that more, not challenging it?
I'm so glad you asked that question. As an attorney, you're generally paid to say what other people don't see. So I'm going to challenge everyone, since we see how woefully underrepresented women are here today. If we all remember Mario Draghi's report about European productivity, pretend we're here in like a comedy room, because I'm going to say something a little bit offensive, but it's in the spirit of waking everyone up. So Mario Draghi, when he provided evidence to show in the last 20 years, Europe is woefully behind the United States in productivity and all the financial and data metrics that everyone loves. He didn't say because Europeans are lazier and less smart than their American counterparts. He gave all the reasons why the environment does not facilitate the productivity, the investment in venture capital that we see in the United States. And I recently had this thought that, I'm not a gender equality advocate per se, it's not my issue. I am interested in sort of the meat and potato conversations, but I can't help but notice that, even though my mother's 84 and she was an activist and she was a surgeon, I didn't expect, it's still to be a conversation that we're so few and far between. So I asked ChatGPT about something that I intuitively know. So my family's from Iran, and we have a lot of STEM women, a lot of female friends who are quantum and physicists and so on. So here's a statistic for everyone. What is the percentage of female STEM graduates in Europe? 32%. The United States, 34%, China, 40%, India, 43%, Iran, 70%. So I turn it to you and I say, if Europe cannot produce a equal number of STEM graduates while India, China, and Iran can, perhaps the problem is here, the culture, your academic institution. So I say it to be provocative, but if we're also data-driven, look at that data and ask yourself why Europe is not able to motivate its girls, its women to pursue, STEM degrees and careers in STEM. Thank you.
No, thank you for the challenge. Amy, I've got a quick question for you about the United States, if I may. The current administration has sort of it's made Europe wake up, actually, with regards to data. Do you think, can we still consider the United States as an ally in Europe?
I think it's a challenge. You look at the just general geopolitical state at this particular moment, and it's some days you just wake up and you think, well, we're just a hair's breadth away from, really severely, like everyone at war. So we have to find smarter ways. I've actually been heartened today to hear about the interoperability concerns, about cross-country, even cross-industry collaboration that really has to happen on a global level. One word I keep hearing a lot of is competition. It's almost, and sort of a growth at all cost metric to which we measure our success. We have to think differently about, it's diametrically opposed to humanity. It's diametrically opposed to our sustainability goals. That's not to say we can't bake in profitability, but I think we just need to really have a much broader lens on how we approach these issues.
Fedra, I want to talk to you about trust. I want you to place, I'm going to the same question to both of you. In what order would you place these in terms of trustworthy guardians of AI? Do you trust tech bros, policymakers, or private citizens?
I think it obviously needs to be a multi-stakeholder approach. I surely wouldn't trust the companies, and it's troubling that governments don't have the resources to be able to tap into the best and brightest minds, not only from a technological point of view, but from an intellectual and academic point of view. So I think the direction that we're going is completely wrong. And I take inspiration from Geoffrey Hinton, who had the courage to quit Google because he wanted to stand up. So I have also freed myself from my prior activity, working with ultra-high net worths, where I had to think about what I was saying, and I stand here as someone who wants to be an independent voice and wants to say what other people are afraid to talk about. So I think having corporations advise, lobby, and drive the conversation is incredibly irresponsible.
Who can we trust, Amy?
Well, in a perfect world, it would be multi-stakeholder. Individuals, I think, need to have just paying attention more to, you mentioned data. We need to start looking at identity and data sovereignty and building business models that, let's face it, serve the incumbents, but that allow us to take control of our own data. There are network protocols that exist. There are ways of search and data, and it may even unlock a more, inclusive economic construct. But the truth is, trust is out the window. We're not even going to be able to believe our own eyes in the next year, right? So we need to really educate ourselves, and we need to get in the game and address all of these issues, not just growth, not just technology, but again, the humanity of all of this.
I've received another question from the audience right here. This is a quick one. I mean, you can pass. It's rather sensitive. And the question is, should the CIA have backdoor access to US citizen data?
I think that if we look at what has happened, again, without being political, I think most reasonable people would understand that it's no longer clear who the good guys and the bad guys are. And I think that a strange blessing is that with what is happening in the United States, Europe now might have that wake-up call so that you don't just assume that America is there to drive and lead the way and fix everything. So we all need to be responsible. I think that the best thing is to look to your kid, your neighbor, your mom, and imagine that you are participating in the building of an ecosystem of which we are also part of as citizens. So if you just do what you would want to happen to your own kid, that really is a North Star. It is a moral and ethical North Star.
I mean, yeah, it's very simple. I mean, we had the Ministry of Defense here, so in theory, as a citizen, should I assume that they have the right to access all of my data?
I would assume that they already have access to your data. And by the way, we gave our data away to almost everybody. So we're out there. My proposal is build constructs for sovereign data, sovereign identity. You talk about trust. Beyond KYC, know your customer. It's going to be KYA, know your agent. Who built these agents? We need proof of humanity. There is a lot that we need to tackle, and we need to look at, again, the entire swath of technology to help us solve it.
Amy, we're out of time, but I'm going to finish with my final question for both of our contributors today. Amy, in this current AI revolution, what does really matter?
Humanity. That should be our North Star.
Fedra?
I think we need to, imagine our child and think, what do you want for the life cycle of that child? You want the child to have education, health, friends, be in a safe environment, and then that kid is going to work, and when that kid is at the job, what kind of environment do you want that kid, that now adult has? And then your kid's going to get old, like my parents. My mother is a gynecologist. She's delivered 20,000 babies, but now she struggles with that, computer interface on the phone that, is not friendly or safe for her. So if we just design worlds that we ourselves want to be a part of and we would want our children to be a part of, that would already be a huge step forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have a round of applause, please, for Amy, Peck, and Fedra Fateh?